The Exodus, liberation, covenant, and national identity. Have you ever faced an impossible barrier, trapped between oppression's grip and a sea of insurmountable odds? The Exodus is more than a story of survival. It's a moment where heaven and earth collide, where divine intervention parts the waters, forging freedom, identity, and hope against all odds. Journey with us as we uncover the profound truth of this timeless narrative. Like, subscribe, and stay until the end, because this story may just change your own. Imagine, if you will, a moment suspended between worlds. A moment where the very fabric of reality seems to tear, revealing a path where none should exist. A people, broken by centuries of servitude, stands at the edge of an unfathomable abyss. Behind them, the iron fist of tyranny tightens its grip. The armies of Pharaoh, symbols of unrelenting power, advance with a relentless hunger. Before them, a barrier, a liquid wall that seems to mock their desperate hope. The sea in its vastness speaks of the limits of human power, of the insurmountable obstacles that confine us. This is not simply a tale of escape, but a profound revelation of divine intervention. It is the story of a God who chooses to enter into the chaos of human history, to disrupt the seemingly immutable laws of nature. The parting of the waters is not merely a physical phenomenon, but a metaphysical declaration. It is a sign that even the most formidable barriers, the most entrenched systems of oppression, can be overcome by a power that transcends the limitations of the created order. Look closely at the faces of those who walk this path. They carry within them the weight of generations, the scars of injustice, yet they move forward, driven by a flicker of faith, an ember of hope that refuses to be extinguished. And then the moment of liberation. The waters which had held them captive become the instrument of their deliverance. The very force that threatened to drown them now provides the means of their salvation. This is the paradox of divine grace. That which seems to be our undoing can become the very source of our redemption. The collapse of the waters is not merely a return to the natural order, but a symbolic cleansing, a baptism into a new reality. The past is washed away, and a new future dawns. The Exodus, this primal narrative of liberation, is not confined to the sands of ancient Egypt. It echoes through the corridors of time, resonating with every cry for freedom, every struggle against injustice. From the spirituals of enslaved African Americans, who saw in Moses a reflection of their own longing for deliverance, to the courageous marchers who crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, facing the specter of violence, the Exodus story has been a beacon of hope. It is the language of the oppressed, the vocabulary of the yearning for liberation. It is the story of refugees who seek safe passage, of those who stand against injustice, of all who dare to dream of a world where the chains of oppression are broken. But the Exodus is more than just a historical event or a metaphor for social justice. It is a profound theological statement. It reveals a God who is not distant or indifferent, but intimately involved in the affairs of humanity. A God who hears the cries of the oppressed, who sees the suffering of the marginalized, and who acts to liberate them. The Exodus is a testament to the power of divine love, a love that breaks down barriers, that transcends limitations, and that offers a path to freedom for all who seek it. It is a promise etched in the very fabric of creation that even in the darkest of times, hope remains and liberation is possible. This story is not just for the ancient Israelites, but for us, here and now. It is a call to recognize the Exodus in our own lives, to see the barriers that confine us, and to trust in the God who parts the waters, who makes a way where there seems to be no way. Historical Egypt and the Hebrew presence. Our story, the story of the Exodus, begins not with triumph, but with the bitter taste of oppression. It commences in the shadow of one of the ancient world's most formidable empires, a civilization that reached the zenith of human power and artistic achievement. Egypt, with its sun-drenched temples and monumental pyramids, stood as a testament to human ingenuity and ambition. Yet, beneath this veneer of grandeur, a dark undercurrent flowed, a current of exploitation and injustice. We must understand that the splendor of Egypt was built upon the backs of the enslaved, a truth that echoes throughout history, a constant reminder that human achievement can be tainted by the stain of human cruelty. The narrative of the Exodus doesn't shy away from the harsh realities of slavery. The Egyptians became ruthless in imposing tasks on the Israelites and made their lives bitter with hard service. Exodus 1:13-14. These are not mere words on a page, but a stark depiction of human suffering. Imagine the endless days of forced labor, the relentless sun beating down, the weight of the stones, the constant fear of the taskmaster's whip. The biblical account, in its stark simplicity, captures the essence of this brutal reality, a reality that has been repeated throughout human history in countless times and places. Archaeological evidence, while debated in its precise dating, with possibilities ranging from the 15th to 13th centuries BCE, confirms the presence of Semitic peoples in Egypt, some as slaves toiling in the construction of the great cities of Pithom and Ramesses. The bricks they made, with their telltale mix of straw and mud, stand as silent witnesses to their suffering. These are not just artifacts, they are relics of human pain, tangible reminders of the cost of empire. They speak of a people reduced to mere instruments of labor, their humanity stripped away, their lives measured in the number of bricks they produced. The power dynamic is stark, a brutal hierarchy where the lives of the enslaved are deemed expendable. The taskmasters, symbols of oppressive authority, wield their whips with impunity, their faces etched with the coldness of absolute power. This is the face of tyranny, the face of those who seek to crush the human spirit, to extinguish the flame of hope. The biblical narrative, in its unflinching portrayal of this reality, reminds us that the struggle against oppression is not a relic of the past, but a timeless battle, a struggle that continues to this day. The Egyptian tomb paintings, with their depictions of captive peoples, offer a glimpse into the mindset of the oppressors. These images, intended to glorify the power of the pharaoh, reveal the dehumanization inherent in slavery. The captives are reduced to mere figures, their faces devoid of individuality, their humanity erased. The archaeological remains of the brickworks, with their layers of straw and mud, speak of the sheer scale of the labor, the endless toil that went into building the Egyptian empire. These are not just historical artifacts. They are testaments to the suffering of a people whose cries echoed through the ages. But the cruelty of Pharaoh reached an almost unthinkable level. The biblical narrative is pointed in its detail. Pharaoh commands the midwives to kill Hebrew boys. When they courageously resist this genocide, he orders all male infants thrown into the Nile. This isn't mere ancient cruelty, it's the systematic attempt to destroy a people's future, what we would now recognize as cultural genocide. Augustine, in his profound wisdom, saw in Pharaoh the archetype of destructive pride, writing, "The ruler of darkness cannot bear the light of freedom." This is the ultimate expression of tyranny, the attempt to extinguish not just lives, but the very possibility of future generations. It is a war against hope itself, a battle against the very essence of human dignity. The Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt, becomes a river of death, a symbol of Pharaoh's insatiable thirst for power. It is in this darkest of hours that the seeds of liberation are sown, that the cry for freedom begins to rise from the depths of despair. Modern forms of bondage. To confine the Exodus to the dusty pages of ancient history is to fundamentally misunderstand its enduring power. It is to ignore its prophetic voice, which echoes through the ages, confronting us with the uncomfortable truth that bondage is not a relic of the past, but a pervasive reality of the present. Today, more people live in various forms of bondage than at any other time in human history. The chains may have changed their form, but the weight of oppression remains. The sweatshops, where workers toil in inhumane conditions, are the modern-day brickyards of Egypt. The victims of human trafficking, their lives stolen and their dignity violated, are the infants cast into the Nile. The prison industrial complex, which profits from the incarceration of the marginalized, is the modern Pharaoh seeking to crush the spirit of the oppressed. And the refugee camps, where people are trapped in a cycle of desperation, are the desolate wilderness, where hope seems to wither and die. The insidious nature of economic exploitation, the vast disparities in wealth and opportunity, the global supply chains that perpetuate inequality, these are the subtle yet powerful forms of bondage that enslave millions. The digital age has brought new forms of exploitation, where click farms and online manipulation reduce human beings to mere cogs in a machine. We are all connected in this complex web of economic disparity. The luxury that some experience is often built upon the backs of others. We must ask ourselves, are we complicit in these systems of bondage? Do we benefit from the suffering of others? The bonds of oppression extend beyond the human sphere. The exploitation of the natural world, the destruction of ecosystems, and the displacement of indigenous communities are also forms of bondage. When we treat the earth as a resource to be exploited, we are perpetuating a cycle of violence that ultimately harms all of creation. The cry of the earth is a cry for liberation, a cry that echoes the cries of the oppressed throughout history. The earth groans under the weight of man's exploitation, and this groaning is a form of bondage. But even in the midst of this darkness, there is hope. The spirit of the Exodus continues to inspire movements for liberation around the world. People are rising up, challenging the systems of oppression and demanding justice. Activists are working to combat human trafficking, to reform the prison system, to provide aid to refugees, and to create a more just and equitable world. These are the modern-day Moseses, the courageous individuals who are answering the call to liberate the oppressed. They are the light that shines in the darkness, the hope that refuses to be extinguished. Gustavo Gutierrez, the father of liberation theology, reminds us that the Exodus experience is paradigmatic. God's action in history becomes a commitment to the most vulnerable. This is not a sentimental statement, but a profound theological truth. God does not remain aloof from the suffering of humanity. God enters into the chaos of history, taking sides with the oppressed and working to liberate them from their bondage. The contrast between the luxurious and the impoverished is a visual representation of the modern-day pharaohs and the modern-day Hebrew slaves. The disparities are so large that we must ask ourselves, how can this be? How can we allow this to happen? Liberation theology, which emerged in Latin America in the 1960s, challenged the church to see the Exodus not as a spiritualized allegory, but as God's concrete stance against systemic injustice. When Moses tells Pharaoh, "Let my people go that they may worship me," It reveals that political liberation and spiritual freedom are inseparable. True worship cannot happen in chains. To worship God in spirit and in truth requires freedom from all forms of oppression. The Exodus is not just a story of the past. It is a call to action in the present. It is a call to break the chains of bondage, to liberate the oppressed, and to create a world where justice and peace prevail. The Bible and the story of the Exodus is not just a book, but a living document that speaks to us today. The burning bush in the vast, desolate expanse of Midian, where the silence is broken only by the bleating of sheep and the whisper of the wind, we find Moses. A man of two worlds, once a prince of Egypt, now a fugitive shepherd. He embodies the tension between power and humility, between the grandeur of a lost past and the simplicity of his present. Here, in the quiet solitude of the wilderness, he tends his flock, a life of seeming insignificance, yet a life that prepares him for an encounter that will forever alter the course of history. We must remember that God often works in the margins, in the places where we least expect to find him. The quietness of the desert is the perfect place for God to speak. And then the impossible. A bush, seemingly ordinary, bursts into flames. But this is no ordinary fire. It burns with an otherworldly intensity, yet the bush itself remains untouched, unharmed. A paradox, a mystery, a sign that transcends the limitations of the natural world. This burning bush is not merely a visual spectacle. It is a symbol, a powerful metaphor for the divine presence. It is a fire that transforms without consuming, a light that illuminates without destroying. It is the very image of God's grace, a force that refines and purifies without annihilating. This image should cause us to pause and to wonder, what is the nature of this fire? Moses, drawn by the inexplicable sight, approaches with a sense of awe and trepidation. He is a man accustomed to the rhythms of the natural world, yet he recognizes that this is something beyond the ordinary. The camera captures his hesitant steps, his eyes wide with wonder, reflecting the universal human response to the sacred. We all have moments where we encounter something that is beyond our understanding. Moments where we feel the presence of something greater than ourselves. Moses is experiencing one of those moments. And then the voice. A voice that emanates from the flames. A voice that speaks with authority and power. Moses recoils, his face filled with a mixture of fear and reverence. He is in the presence of the divine, a reality that shatters his assumptions and challenges his understanding of the world. The command to remove his sandals is a symbolic gesture, a recognition that he stands on holy ground. It is a moment of profound humility, a surrender to the presence of the sacred. This action is a universal sign of reverence and respect. It is a moment of complete submission to the divine. The flames themselves become a focal point, a visual representation of the divine mystery. They dance and flicker, revealing an almost hypnotic dance of light and shadow. The artistic renderings of the divine name in Hebrew, the ancient characters glowing with an inner light, further emphasize the sacredness of the moment. Ihi Yahir, I am who I am, or perhaps better translated as, I will be what I will be. This is not merely a name, but a declaration of absolute being and freedom. It is a revelation of God's self-sufficiency, his transcendence of all limitations. It is a name that defies definition, a mystery that cannot be fully grasped. Augustine, in his profound wisdom, saw in this name the foundation of all metaphysics, writing, God is being itself, beside which nothing else truly is. This name is the foundation of all that is. It is the root of all existence. In this encounter, Moses is not merely receiving a name. He is being initiated into the very heart of divine reality. He is being called to participate in God's plan of liberation, to become an instrument of divine justice. The awestruck look on Moses' face is the look of a man who has encountered the living God. This meeting changes everything. God says, "I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt. I have come down to deliver them." Exodus 3:7-8. These words are not just a statement of intent. They are a declaration of divine compassion, a promise of liberation, the burning bush, the divine name, the call to action. These elements converge to create a moment of profound spiritual significance, a moment that echoes through the ages, reminding us that God is always present, always working to liberate the oppressed, always calling us to participate in His work of redemption. The theology of divine intervention. The encounter at the burning bush is not merely a personal revelation from Moses. It is a profound theological statement, a declaration of God's active involvement in the affairs of humanity. The God who speaks from the bush makes a remarkable revolutionary statement. "I have heard their cry. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them." Exodus 3:7-8. These words are not mere sentiments, they are a divine commitment, a promise of liberation. We see in this moment that God is not a distant, indifferent observer, but a compassionate participant in the human drama. The split screen we see of Moses and MLK is a visual representation of the timelessness of God's call to liberation. Three revolutionary claims: God hears, God knows, God acts. These claims shatter the notion of a detached deity, revealing a God who is intimately concerned with the plight of the oppressed. Liberation theology finds its foundation here, not in political ideology, but in divine self-revelation. The actions of Desmond Tutu and Dorothy Day are a testament to the fact that God's work of liberation continues through people of faith today. They are examples of people who heard the call and acted. James Cone, the father of Black liberation theology, articulated this truth with unwavering clarity. The God of Israel is the God of Black liberation. Any theological statement that fails to make God's liberation of the oppressed its starting point is false. Cone's words are a powerful reminder that the Exodus story is not confined to the past. It is a living testament to God's ongoing commitment to justice. The words of James Cone, superimposed onto the images of the civil rights struggle, brings a powerful visual representation of the theology of God's intervention. The images of suffering and of struggle are a testament to the need for divine intervention. God's hearing and knowing are not passive observations. They are the foundation for divine action. The act of coming down signifies God's willingness to enter into the messiness of human history, to stand in solidarity with the suffering. This is a God who does not remain aloof, but who actively intervenes to break the chains of oppression. God's hands are shown through the hands of those who help the suffering. God's eyes are shown through the eyes of those who show compassion. God's voice is shown through the voices of those who speak out for justice. Similarly, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel saw in the burning bush the ethical demand that would define Judaism. The Bible is not man's theology, but God's anthropology, God's concern for man. Heschel's insight highlights the profound shift in perspective that the Exodus narrative demands. It is not about human attempts to understand God, but about God's relentless pursuit of humanity, His unwavering commitment to justice. The modern-day activists who fight for justice are living examples of God's concern for man. The interfaith cooperation shows that God's call for justice transcends religious boundaries. This is the essence of divine intervention, a God who hears the cries of the oppressed, who knows their suffering, and who acts to liberate them. This is not a God of abstract principles, but a God of concrete action. A God who rolls up his sleeves and gets involved in the messy realities of human existence. The burning bush, with its pulsating flame, serves as a powerful reminder of this divine presence, a presence that continues to ignite the flames of liberation in every generation. It is a presence that calls us to participate in God's work, to become instruments of his justice, to break the chains of oppression, and to build a world where all are free. Let my people go. The confrontation between Moses and Pharaoh is not merely a political power struggle. It is a clash of competing worldviews, a battle between two fundamentally different understandings of power itself. Pharaoh, enthroned in his opulent palace, embodies the power of the world, a power built on domination, exploitation, and the relentless pursuit of self-aggrandizement. His power demands production at any human cost, viewing people as mere instruments to serve the state or the ruler. The sheer scale and opulence of his throne room is a visual representation of this worldly power. We must understand that this is more than just a historical event. It is a representation of the powers and principalities that exist even today. Moses and Aaron, standing before Pharaoh, represent a different kind of power, a power rooted in divine authority and guided by a commitment to justice and compassion. Their humble appearance belies their inner strength, a strength derived from their unwavering faith in the God who has sent them. This confrontation is not a battle between equals. It is a clash between the power of the world and the power of God. It is a moment where the very nature of power is being redefined. It is a moment where the foundation of the world is being challenged. The Egyptian court magicians, with their illusions and trickery, represent the deceptive nature of worldly power. They seek to replicate the signs performed by Moses and Aaron, attempting to undermine their authority and maintain the illusion of Pharaoh's invincibility. But their power is ultimately hollow, a mere shadow of the true power that resides in God. The magicians represent the false gods of the world, the idols that seek to deceive and control. Their actions are a testament to the fact that worldly power is often built on illusion and deception. Pharaoh's initial response to Moses' demand is not acceptance, but increased oppression. He hardens his heart, intensifying the burdens of the Israelites, seeking to crush their spirit and extinguish their hope. This is the typical response of worldly power when challenged: to resort to greater violence and oppression. The increasing oppression of the Israelites is a stark reminder that the struggle for liberation is often met with resistance, and that the path to freedom is fraught with hardship. It is a reminder that those who seek to maintain power will often resort to cruelty and violence. The plagues that follow are not random acts of violence, but systematic challenges to Egypt's theological claims. Each plague targets specific Egyptian deities, exposing the emptiness of their power and the falsehood of their claims. The hieroglyphs, once symbols of divine power, now stand as testaments to their impotence. The staff turning into a serpent and the magicians replicating the sign is a representation of the battle between true power and false power. The true power will always prevail. The Nile, once revered as the lifeblood of Egypt, turns to blood, a symbolic defeat of the Nile god Hapi. The sun god Ra is overcome by darkness, a stark reminder of his limitations. These plagues are not merely displays of divine power, they are acts of divine pedagogy, revealing the true nature of God and the emptiness of Pharaoh's claims. Augustine, in his wisdom, saw this as a divine lesson. God demonstrates not merely that he is more powerful than Pharaoh, but that Pharaoh is no God at all. The plagues are a visual representation of the dismantling of false idols, the suffering of the Egyptian people, the chaos and disruption caused by the plagues, serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of Pharaoh's stubborn refusal to acknowledge the true God. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming evidence, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened, his pride preventing him from surrendering to the divine will. This hardening of Pharaoh's heart is a representation of the human condition. We often refuse to acknowledge the truth, even when it is staring us in the face. The plagues and the suffering they cause are a testament to the fact that the refusal to acknowledge God leads to destruction. This story is not just a historical event. It is a timeless lesson about the nature of power and the consequences of rejecting the divine, hardened hearts and human freedom. The narrative of the Exodus presents us with one of its most perplexing and challenging theological dilemmas: the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. We see Pharaoh repeatedly refusing Moses' demands, his obstinacy growing with each passing plague. This raises a profound question. Does God's intervention violate Pharaoh's free will? Is he a mere puppet in a divine drama? The visual of Pharaoh repeatedly refusing Moses is a representation of the human ability to say no, even to God. The artistic representation of a heart turning to stone is a powerful metaphor for this process. It suggests a gradual petrification, a slow erosion of compassion and empathy. This is not a sudden, dramatic transformation, but a gradual hardening, a slow descent into moral numbness. The image of a heart turning to stone is a powerful visual representation of the consequences of unchecked pride and power. Thomas Aquinas, in his profound wisdom, offered a nuanced perspective on this issue. He argued that God does not force evil, but rather withdraws the grace that would soften natural stubbornness. Pharaoh hardens his own heart first, through his repeated acts of defiance. God then confirms this hardening as a form of judgment, allowing Pharaoh to reap the consequences of his own choices. The philosophical animation of free will and divine sovereignty is a visual representation of the complex interplay between these two concepts. It is a reminder that the relationship between God and humanity is a mystery that we cannot fully comprehend. Perhaps we can understand this hardening as the natural consequence of unchecked power. As Lord Acton famously observed, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Pharaoh's inability to recognize reality, even as his nation crumbles, mirrors how systems of oppression blind their beneficiaries to the humanity of others. The modern examples of how power corrupts its holders are a stark reminder that Acton's observation remains relevant today. The images of dictators and corporate executives are visual representations of the corrupting influence of power. Dictators who believe their own propaganda, surrounded by sycophants who reinforce their delusions, are trapped in a self-created reality, a bubble of power that isolates them from the truth. Their ears are closed to dissenting voices, their eyes blind to the suffering they inflict. This is the ultimate tragedy of unchecked power. It not only corrupts the holder, but also blinds them to their own corruption. These modern-day examples are a testament to the fact that the hardening of the heart is not limited to ancient pharaohs, but is a timeless human problem. The montage of people oppressed by those with hardened hearts serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of this moral blindness. The suffering of the poor, the marginalized, and the victims of injustice is a direct consequence of the choices made by those who wield power. This scene is a call to empathy, a call to recognize the humanity of those who are suffering and to challenge the systems of oppression that perpetuate their pain. It is a call to remember that every human being is made in the image of God, and that every act of injustice is an affront to that image. The Night of Deliverance, the climax of the plagues, the death of the firstborn, is a moment of profound judgment, a devastating reversal of Pharaoh's earlier infanticide. Yet, even in the midst of this darkness, a light of hope emerges, the institution of Passover. This is not merely a ritual of survival, but a sacred covenant, a meal of remembrance that will shape the identity of the Jewish people for generations to come. The preparation of the Passover meal is a sacred act, a preparation for the coming deliverance. The marking of the doorposts with the blood of the Lamb is a powerful symbol of divine protection, a sign of God's covenant with His people. This act, seemingly simple, is a profound statement of faith, a declaration of trust in God's promise of deliverance. The blood, a symbol of life, becomes a shield against death, a testament to God's power to redeem and save. The act of placing the blood on the doorpost is an act of placing one's faith in God. The Passover meal itself, eaten in haste, with bitter herbs and unleavened bread, is a reminder of the urgency of their situation, the need to be ready to flee at a moment's notice. It is a meal that speaks of hardship and suffering, but also of hope and anticipation. The eating of the lamb is a sacred act, a participation in the deliverance. The angel of death, the instrument of divine judgment, passes over the marked houses, sparing the Hebrew families from the devastation that befalls the Egyptians. This is a moment of divine intervention, a demonstration of God's power to protect His people. The passing over of the angel of death is a demonstration of God's mercy. The mourning of the Egyptians, the cries of anguish that fill the night, serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of Pharaoh's stubborn refusal to acknowledge the true God. It is a moment of profound grief, a testament to the devastating impact of sin and oppression. The mourning of the Egyptians is a reminder of the cost of rejecting God. The enduring power of the Passover lies in its fusion of past and present through ritual reenactment. Each generation doesn't merely remember the Exodus, they experience it. The Haggadah commands, in every generation, each person must see themselves as if they personally left Egypt. This is not mere historical recollection, but a living memory, a participation in the transformative event of liberation. The modern Jewish families celebrating Passover are a testament to the enduring power of this ritual. This ritual remembrance would later influence Christian theology of the Eucharist, where Christ is identified as the Passover lamb. The bread and wine, symbols of Christ's body and blood, become a means of participating in His sacrifice, a way of remembering His death and resurrection. The Christian communion service is a continuation of this tradition of remembrance. The Passover and the Eucharist are powerful examples of how ritual and memory can shape identity, foster community, and transmit faith across generations. They are reminders that the past is not merely a collection of events, but a living presence that continues to shape our present and future. The interfaith dialogue highlights the universal human need for ritual and remembrance. The marked doorpost, bathed in the soft glow of remembrance, stands as a testament to the enduring significance of the Passover. It is a symbol of liberation, a reminder of God's faithfulness, and a call to remember the past, to celebrate the present, and to hope for the future. The Passover is a timeless story of liberation and remembrance. The Theology of Substitution. The heart of the Passover narrative, beyond the dramatic escape and the divine judgment, lies in a profound theological principle: substitution. The lamb sacrificed in place of the firstborn becomes a powerful symbol of this concept. Its blood applied to the doorposts creates a visible, tangible boundary between death and life. It is not merely a sign, but an active intervention, a transfer of fate. This act, in its stark simplicity, raises deep questions about the nature of sacrifice and the cost of liberation. We are forced to confront the idea that life can be purchased with life, that redemption can come through a vicarious offering. This substitutionary element, where the lamb dies so the firstborn might live, would become central to Christian interpretation. The early church, grappling with the meaning of Christ's crucifixion, found a powerful prefiguration in the Passover. Augustine, with his characteristic depth and insight, writes, "The Passover lamb prefigures Christ, whose blood marks us for salvation." This Christological reading, while rooted in the New Testament, illuminates a universal truth about the nature of sacrificial love. It speaks of a love that is willing to bear the weight of another's burden, to offer oneself as a ransom for the redemption of others. It is a love that transcends the boundaries of time and culture, a love that echoes through the ages. Yet, even without this explicitly Christological lens, the Passover establishes a profound theological principle. Liberation requires sacrifice. This is not a comfortable truth, but a stark reality that resonates throughout human history. The path to freedom is often paved with suffering, with the willingness to lay down one's life for the sake of others. The lamb sacrifice, in its primal simplicity, foreshadows the sacrifices made by countless individuals throughout history, those who have given their lives for the cause of justice and freedom. Liberation theologians, drawing on the lived experiences of the oppressed, have emphasized that genuine freedom is never free. It is always purchased at a cost, often a heavy one. Sacrificial love, the willingness to suffer for others, marks authentic liberation movements. This is not a romantic notion, but a hard-won truth, born of struggle and sacrifice. The willingness to suffer, to endure hardship, to even face death for the sake of others, is the hallmark of true love and true liberation. Oscar Romero, the assassinated Archbishop of El Salvador, embodied this principle with unwavering courage. He spoke truth to power, denounced injustice, and stood in solidarity with the poor and marginalized. His words, "If they kill me, I will rise again," in the Salvadoran people, are a testament to the enduring power of sacrificial love. He understood that his death would not be in vain, that it would ignite a flame of hope in the hearts of his people. His sacrifice, like that of the Passover lamb, became a seed of liberation, a catalyst for change. The Passover substitutionary principle illuminates the mystery of why liberative change often requires the sacrifice of the innocent. This is a profound and unsettling question, one that challenges our understanding of justice and fairness. Yet, the narrative of the Exodus and the witness of countless liberation movements remind us that the path to freedom is often marked by the blood of martyrs, by the sacrifices of those who are willing to pay the ultimate price. It is a mystery, a paradox, a truth that transcends human comprehension. We are confronted with the reality that liberation is not a passive event, but an active struggle, a battle against the forces of oppression. It is a battle that demands courage, resilience, and a willingness to sacrifice. The blood on the doorposts, the sacrifice of the Lamb, the martyrdom of Oscar Romero. These are not isolated events, but part of a larger narrative, a story of redemption that echoes through the ages. They are reminders that true liberation is born of love, and that love is often expressed through sacrifice. The Passover, in its profound simplicity, invites us to contemplate the mystery of substitution, the power of sacrifice, and the cost of liberation. It challenges us to reflect on our own willingness to sacrifice for the sake of others, to stand in solidarity with the oppressed, and to work for a world where justice and peace prevail. It is a call to remember, to reflect, and to act, to participate in the ongoing work of liberation, to become instruments of God's love and justice in a world that desperately needs both. Between the waters. The Red Sea crossing stands as the dramatic climax, the defining moment of the Exodus narrative. It is a scene of immense tension, of seemingly insurmountable odds. The Israelites, having escaped the clutches of Pharaoh, find themselves trapped. Behind them, the pursuing armies of Egypt, symbols of relentless oppression, are closing in. Before them, the vast expanse of the Red Sea, an impassable barrier, stretches to the horizon. They are caught between two worlds, between slavery and freedom, between death and the possibility of life. This moment is a powerful metaphor for the human condition, for the times when we feel trapped, when we face seemingly impossible challenges, when the path forward seems to vanish before our eyes. In this moment of utter desperation, the divine command comes as a surprise, a challenge to human expectations. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to be still. Exodus 14:14. These words are a powerful reminder that liberation is not solely a human endeavor. It is not something we can achieve through our own strength or ingenuity. It requires divine intervention, a power beyond our comprehension, a force that can overcome the seemingly insurmountable. The stillness that is commanded is not a passive resignation, but an active trust, a reliance on the power of God to act. However, the Exodus narrative also emphasizes that liberation requires both divine intervention and human participation. God parts the waters, an act of divine power that defies the natural order. But the people must walk through. They must take the first step. They must move forward in faith. They must embrace the possibility of freedom. This is a crucial point. Divine grace does not negate human responsibility. God empowers, God enables, but we must still choose to act, to participate in the journey towards liberation. The parting of the waters creates the opportunity, but the people must choose to walk through. The Red Sea crossing is not merely a physical event, it is a profound symbolic transformation. The imagery of passing through waters becomes foundational for understanding transformation throughout Scripture. Water, in its dual nature, can both destroy and cleanse. It can bring death and it can bring life. In the Exodus, the waters of the Red Sea become a boundary, a threshold between the old life of slavery and the new life of freedom. It is a passage from one reality to another, a journey of death and rebirth. This imagery of water as a transformative element is a powerful symbol that resonates throughout human experience. Early Christians, seeking to understand their own experience of salvation, saw in the Red Sea crossing a powerful prefigurement of baptism. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, writes, "Our ancestors were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea." 1 Corinthians 10:10, 1-2. Paul's words are a profound theological interpretation, connecting the ancient narrative of the Exodus with the contemporary practice of baptism. He sees the crossing as a symbolic baptism, a cleansing from the old life, and an initiation into a new covenant community. The metaphor of baptism, drawn from the Red Sea crossing, speaks of a radical transformation, a death to the old self, and a resurrection to new life in Christ. Just as the Israelites passed through the waters to freedom, the believer passes through the waters of baptism to a new reality, a life lived in communion with God. The waters of baptism are not merely a ritual cleansing, they are a symbolic death and rebirth, a participation in the transformative power of God's grace. The connection between the Red Sea crossing and baptism is a powerful reminder of the enduring power of the Exodus narrative. The Red Sea crossing, therefore, is more than just a historical event. It is a theological archetype, a foundational narrative that continues to shape our understanding of liberation, transformation, and the relationship between God and humanity. It is a story of divine intervention, of human participation, of the power of faith to overcome fear, and of the enduring promise of freedom. It is a story that speaks to us across the ages, reminding us that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, there is always hope. There is always the possibility of a new beginning. There is always the promise of God's liberating power. The imagery of the Red Sea crossing, with its themes of struggle, deliverance, and transformation, continues to resonate with people of faith and those who seek justice and freedom. It is a story that reminds us that the journey to liberation is not always easy, that it often involves facing fear and uncertainty, but that with faith and courage we can overcome even the most daunting challenges. It is a story that calls us to participate in the ongoing work of liberation, to stand in solidarity with the oppressed, and to trust in the power of God to make a way where there seems to be no way. The Red Sea crossing is a timeless story of hope and liberation. The birth of freedom? Imagine the scene. The air thick with the salt of the sea and the lingering scent of fear, now giving way to an almost disbelieving joy. The Israelites, their eyes still wide with the spectacle they've witnessed, stand on the far shore. The towering walls of water that moments ago threatened to engulf them have crashed back into the sea, swallowing the pursuing Egyptian army. The roar of the waves, once a sound of terror, now echoes like a triumphant symphony. It is a moment of profound, almost surreal liberation. They are free, truly, irrevocably free. The weight of centuries, the crushing burden of slavery has been lifted. They are no longer defined by their chains, but by the miracle that has delivered them. The first moments of freedom are often marked by a kind of stunned silence, a disbelief that the impossible has become reality. But then a sound breaks through, a rhythmic pulse, a vibrant energy, a voice that rises above the waves. Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Moses and Aaron, takes her tambourine. The simple instrument, a symbol of joy and celebration, becomes a conduit for the collective emotion of the people. She steps forward, her movements infused with the spirit of liberation, and begins to dance. It is not a choreographed dance, but an outpouring of raw emotion, a physical expression of the soul's release. And then the song. A song of triumph, a song of praise, a song that echoes the very heart of liberation. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. Exodus 15:21. The words are simple, yet their power is immeasurable. It is the first recorded song in Scripture, a testament to the power of music to express the deepest human emotions. And it is a woman's voice, a voice that had been silenced by oppression, now ringing out with the joy of freedom. Miriam's song is a declaration, a proclamation, a celebration of divine power and human deliverance. The women, their faces radiant with joy, join Miriam in dance and song. Their movements are fluid, their voices strong, their spirits soaring. They are no longer slaves, but daughters of freedom, their bodies and souls liberated from the bonds of oppression. This is a moment of profound transformation, a moment where the human spirit, crushed by slavery, blossoms into the fullness of its potential. The tambourine and the dance are not merely entertainment, they are acts of defiance, expressions of a newfound identity, symbols of the reclaiming of their humanity. The split-screen images that we see displaying celebrations throughout history, the fall of the Berlin Wall, Nelson Mandela's release, the end of dictatorships, are not mere coincidences. They are echoes of this moment, reverberations of the same human yearning for freedom that filled the air on the shores of the Red Sea. They are visual testaments to the universal and timeless nature of liberation. Each celebration, in its own unique way, reflects the same joy, the same sense of triumph, the same reclaiming of dignity that the Israelites experienced on that momentous day. The liberation theologian Elsa Tamez offers a profound insight. Oppression silences, while liberation restores voice. This is not merely a metaphor, but a stark reality. Oppression strips individuals and communities of their ability to express themselves, to articulate their experiences, to celebrate their humanity. Miriam's song and the voices of the women who join her represent the restoration of that voice. It is a reclaiming of their narrative, a declaration that they will no longer be silenced. It is a powerful act of resistance, a defiant expression of their newfound freedom. But the celebration, as joyous and transformative as it is not the end of the story. The journey has just begun. The challenges of freedom, thirst, hunger, conflict lie ahead. The wilderness with its harsh realities will test their faith, their resilience, their commitment to their newfound freedom. Liberation is not a destination, but a process, a journey that requires perseverance, faith, and a willingness to face the unknown. The exhilaration of the moment must give way to the hard work of building a new life, a new community, a new identity. The first moments of freedom are precious, fragile, and fleeting. They are a time of intense emotion, a time of profound transformation, but they are also a time of vulnerability, a time when the temptation to return to the familiar comforts of slavery can be strong. The Israelites' journey in the wilderness will be a test of their commitment to freedom, a test of their willingness to embrace the challenges and uncertainties that lie ahead. The birth of freedom is a moment of profound joy, but it is also a call to action, a call to build a world where that freedom can flourish. The mountain of God. 3 months after their miraculous escape from Egypt, the Israelites arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai. This was no ordinary mountain. It was a place where the divine intersected with the human, a portal between heaven and earth. What transpired there would irrevocably alter the course of their history, transforming a ragtag band of liberated slaves into a covenant people, a nation with a unique purpose and identity. The journey from physical liberation to spiritual formation was about to begin. God, in his infinite wisdom, declared to Moses and through him to all the people, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Exodus 19:04 through 6. 1. This was not merely a declaration of power, but an invitation into an intimate relationship, a divine proposal of a sacred bond. The covenant forged at Sinai reveals a profound theological insight. Liberation is not an end in itself, but a prelude to obligation. Freedom, true freedom, is not synonymous with autonomous self-determination, a license to do as one pleases. Rather, it is inextricably linked to responsible relationship, to a commitment to a higher purpose. The law given at Sinai, the Ten Commandments, and the subsequent Torah was not primarily a set of restrictions designed to stifle human potential. Instead, it was a comprehensive instruction, a divine curriculum designed to guide the Israelites towards a life of holiness and justice. The Hebrew word Torah itself means teaching, an illumination of God's will, and a pathway to flourishing. It was a gift, not a burden. As Augustine eloquently wrote, the law was given that grace might be sought, grace was given that the law might be fulfilled. The covenant at Sinai was a testament to the transformative power of divine grace, a recognition that true freedom lies in aligning oneself with God's loving purpose for creation. It was a call to live as a light to the nations, a beacon of justice and compassion in a world shrouded in darkness. The scene fades as the light on the tablets become brighter and the sound of the people's unified response echoes. The ethics of liberation. The Exodus narrative is not merely a historical account of liberation, it is a blueprint for a just society. The Ten Commandments, far from being a list of arbitrary rules, reflect the ethical principles that flow from the experience of liberation. As the narrator states, the content of the law reveals its liberative character. The very first commandment, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Exodus 20:02 establishes the foundation for this ethical framework. Liberation, the experience of being freed from bondage, becomes the defining principle that shapes the Israelites' understanding of their relationship with God and with one another. This emphasis on liberation has profound implications for social justice. It demands a society that is fundamentally different from the oppressive regime of Egypt. The Israelites are called to create a society where all members, regardless of their social status or economic standing, are treated with dignity and respect. The Sabbath commandment, you shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns, Exodus 20:10 exemplifies this commitment to social justice. It is not merely a day of rest for the privileged few, but a mandate for rest for all, including the most vulnerable members of society, slaves, livestock, and even foreigners. Liberation theology recognizes the profound social implications of this commandment. It sees the Sabbath as a divine mandate for just labor relations, for the equitable distribution of work and rest, and for the protection of the environment. The Sabbath is not merely a day of cessation from work, but a day for reflection, renewal, and the strengthening of community bonds. The Exodus narrative, with its emphasis on liberation and justice, continues to inspire movements for social change around the world. It serves as a reminder that the pursuit of justice is not merely a political or social endeavor, but a spiritual imperative. The liberation of the Israelites and the ethical principles that flow from that experience offer a powerful vision of a world where all are free, where all are treated with dignity, and where justice and compassion prevail. Beyond the Sabbath, the commandments reflect a deep concern for the most vulnerable members of society. The prohibition against stealing, for example, is not merely about protecting property rights. but about ensuring the economic well-being of all members of the community. The commandment to love your neighbor as yourself extends this concern beyond the immediate circle of family and friends to include strangers, foreigners, and even enemies. This emphasis on the protection of the vulnerable is particularly evident in the laws governing the treatment of foreigners. The Israelites, having experienced the pain of oppression, are commanded to remember their own experience of being strangers and to treat foreigners with compassion and justice. These laws reflect a profound understanding that true liberation requires not only the breaking of chains, but also the creation of a society where all are welcome and included. The Exodus narrative, with its emphasis on liberation and justice, continues to inspire movements for social change around the world. It serves as a reminder that the pursuit of justice is not merely a political or social endeavor, but a spiritual imperative. The liberation of the Israelites and the ethical principles that flow from that experience offer a powerful vision of a world where all are free, where all are treated with dignity, and where justice and compassion prevail. The ethical framework of the Exodus is not limited to individual actions, but extends to the economic structures of society. The laws concerning debt, for example, reflect a deep concern for the economic well-being of the poor and vulnerable. The prohibition against usury, the practice of charging exorbitant interest rates, is a powerful statement against economic exploitation. These laws are not merely about financial regulations. They are about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. The Exodus narrative, with its emphasis on liberation and justice, continues to inspire movements for social change around the world. It serves as a reminder that the pursuit of justice is not merely a political or social endeavor, but a spiritual imperative. The liberation of the Israelites and the ethical principles that flow from that experience offer a powerful vision of a world where all are free, where all are treated with dignity, and where justice and compassion prevail. In conclusion, the Exodus narrative is not merely a historical account of liberation. It is a blueprint for a just society. The Ten Commandments, far from being a list of arbitrary rules, reflect the ethical principles that flow from the experience of liberation. The emphasis on the Sabbath, the protection of the vulnerable, and the promotion of economic justice all point towards a vision of a society where all are free, where all are treated with dignity, and where justice and compassion prevail. The Exodus story continues to inspire movements for social change around the world, reminding us that the pursuit of justice is not merely a political or social endeavor, but a spiritual imperative. From slaves to covenant people, the journey into the wilderness, those 40 years of wandering, are not merely a geographical passage, but a crucible of transformation. It is Israel's formation period, a time of intense testing and profound identity construction. Freed from the physical chains of Egyptian slavery, they now face an even more daunting challenge: to break free from the mental and spiritual shackles of their former bondage. The desert, with its harsh and unforgiving landscape, becomes a symbolic space, a place where the old ways are stripped away and a new identity is forged. The wilderness is a place of vulnerability, a place where the illusions of self-sufficiency are shattered. The Israelites, accustomed to the structured oppression of Egypt, now face the uncertainty of freedom. The vast, empty spaces of the desert reflect the inner emptiness they must confront, the void that must be filled with a new understanding of themselves and their relationship with God. Every step through the sand is a step away from a slave mentality, and yet, even in the midst of this harsh environment, God's provision is made manifest. The miraculous manna, falling like dew from the heavens, becomes a daily reminder of God's faithfulness, a tangible expression of His care. It is a lesson in dependence, a recognition that true freedom lies not in self-reliance, but in trust in the divine. The daily bread is a daily lesson. The water from the rock, another miraculous provision, speaks to God's ability to provide for His people even in the most desperate of circumstances. It is a symbol of God's life-giving power, His ability to quench the thirst of both body and soul. Each drink is a reminder that God is their true source of life. The construction of the portable tabernacle, a sacred space in the midst of the wilderness, becomes a focal point for the Israelites' spiritual formation. It is a symbol of God's presence among His people, a reminder that they are not alone in their journey. The tabernacle is a physical manifestation of the covenant, a place where they can encounter the divine and strengthen their bond with God. Each constructed piece is a piece of their new identity. The golden calf episode, a moment of profound betrayal, reveals the fragility of their newfound freedom. Having been liberated from the external structures of Egyptian oppression, the Israelites succumb to the internal pull of their former idolatry. They recreate the very religious forms they had left behind, demonstrating the enduring power of ingrained habits and the fear of true autonomy. This event shows how quickly we can recreate what we have been freed from. Moses' righteous anger, his shattering of the tablets, is a powerful expression of the gravity of the people's transgression. It is a moment of divine judgment, a recognition that true freedom requires more than just physical liberation. It requires a radical transformation of the heart. The broken tablets symbolize the broken covenant, the shattered trust between God and His people. The breaking of the tablets is a breaking of the old mindset. Yet even in the midst of this failure, God's mercy prevails. Moses' intercession, his willingness to plead on behalf of his people, paves the way for repentance and restoration. The creation of the second set of tablets, a renewed covenant, symbolizes God's enduring commitment to His people, His willingness to forgive and to offer a second chance. This act of grace is a testament to the transformative power of divine love, a love that redeems and restores even in the face of human frailty. The new tablets are a symbol of a new beginning. As Paulo Freire would later observe in Pedagogy of the oppressed, having internalized the image of the oppressor and adopted his guidelines, are fearful of freedom. The wilderness journey is a painful but necessary process of decolonization, a dismantling of the internalized structures of oppression. It is a journey from slaves to covenant people, a journey that requires not only physical endurance but also spiritual transformation. The 40 years in the wilderness are a testament to the enduring struggle for true liberation, a struggle that continues to resonate with individuals and communities throughout history. It is a reminder that freedom is not a gift to be passively received, but a journey to be actively pursued, a journey that demands courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to the covenant of God. The wilderness is a school, and freedom is the lesson. The desert as formative space. The wilderness journey is more than just a geographical passage. It's a profound spiritual and psychological transformation. It's a time of stripping away the familiar, the comfortable, and the known, leaving the Israelites face to face with their own vulnerabilities and dependencies. In this stripped-down state, they are forced to confront their deepest fears, their longings, and their ultimate reliance on God. The desert becomes a crucible, a place where old identities are shed and new ones are forged. The Israelites, accustomed to the familiar rhythms of Egyptian life, must learn to adapt to the harsh realities of the wilderness. They must learn to trust in God's provision, to rely on each other, and to build a new community based on faith and cooperation. The daily provision of manna falling like dew from the heavens is a powerful symbol of God's sustenance and care. It teaches the Israelites the importance of dependence, not on their own resources or the structures of the past, but on the divine provision. The manna becomes a daily reminder that their lives are not in their own hands, but in the hands of a loving and faithful God. The tabernacle, erected in the heart of the wilderness, becomes a sacred space, a place of encounter with the divine. It is a reminder that even in the midst of the vast and empty desert, God is present, that their journey is not a solitary one, but a journey undertaken in communion with their God. The tabernacle becomes a symbol of their new identity, a people chosen by God, a community bound by a sacred covenant. Augustine, the renowned theologian, recognized the profound spiritual significance of the wilderness journey. He saw in the desert a metaphor for the soul's journey, a place where the distractions of the world are stripped away and the individual is left face to face with their true self and their relationship with God. In the desert, Augustine wrote, God alone becomes our bread, our guidance, our law. The wilderness, in this sense, becomes a space for spiritual growth, a place where the soul can be stripped bare and then remade, transformed by the grace of God. The wilderness experience is not merely a historical event, it is a timeless archetype, a reflection of the human journey of transformation. We all, in our own ways, experience periods of wilderness, times of uncertainty, doubt, and vulnerability. These times, though challenging, can be opportunities for profound growth and spiritual renewal. They can be times when we are stripped of our illusions and forced to confront our deepest selves. Times when we are called to rely on a power greater than ourselves. Liberation theologians note that freedom is not merely freedom from, but freedom for. The Exodus journey, they argue, does not end at the Red Sea. The liberation from Egypt is merely the first step on a longer journey, a journey towards a deeper understanding of their identity as God's chosen people, a journey towards a life lived in accordance with the covenant. This challenges contemporary notions of liberation as mere release from constraint, suggesting instead that true freedom involves commitment to a greater good, a commitment to building a just and equitable society. The Israelites, in their wilderness wanderings, are called to learn the meaning of true freedom, a freedom that is not merely the absence of oppression, but the active pursuit of justice, compassion, and righteousness. They are called to become a community that reflects the values of their liberator, a community that embodies the principles of justice and mercy in all their interaction. This is the true meaning of liberation, a transformation that goes beyond the physical to the spiritual, the social, and the ethical. The Exodus journey, with its profound exploration of liberation, continues to resonate with individuals and communities around the world. It is a reminder that the struggle for freedom is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process, a lifelong journey of spiritual and social transformation. It is a call to embrace the challenges of freedom, to use our newfound liberty to build a more just and equitable world, and to strive for a life that reflects the values of liberation. The continuing Exodus. The Exodus has never ended. It continues wherever people move, from bondage to freedom, from alienation to community, from exploitation to justice. Each generation discovers in this ancient narrative a mirror for their own struggles and hopes. It's a testament to the enduring human spirit, a testament to the fact that the desire to be free is embedded in the very fabric of our being. For Jews, Passover's annual declaration, "Next year in Jerusalem," expresses the enduring hope for complete redemption. For Christians, the Exodus prefigures Christ's liberation from sin and death, a spiritual exodus from the bondage of sin to the promised land of eternal life. For liberation theologians, it grounds the preferential option for the poor in divine revelation, a divine mandate to stand with the oppressed and challenge systemic injustice. For secular humanitarian movements, it provides an archetypal narrative of human dignity prevailing against oppression, a universal story that inspires action against injustice wherever it is found. Perhaps the Exodus speaks so powerfully across time and culture because it addresses our deepest human yearning: to be freed from all that binds us, to belong to a community of meaning, and to journey toward a promised future. Whether understood in political, spiritual, or existential terms, the liberation it promises is never merely individual, but communal. Never merely freedom from bonds, but freedom for covenant love. It's a liberation that calls for a transformation of both the individual and society. It asks us to build communities where justice and compassion prevail as we face our own seemingly impassable waters. Whether personal struggles, systemic injustices, or global crises, the Exodus whispers that a path may yet appear, and it challenges us to ask, whose liberation am I called to participate in today? What Egypt requires my Exodus? What promised land awaits beyond the wilderness? The ancient story continues. The waters are still parting. The journey still beckons. The call to liberation echoes through time, inviting each of us to play a role in shaping a more just and compassionate world. Thank you for joining us on this profound journey through the Exodus, a story of liberation, covenant, and the enduring struggle for freedom. If this exploration of God's liberating power has resonated with you, we invite you to join the Path to Liberation community. Subscribe for more theological reflections on freedom and justice. Share your own experiences of breaking free from the chains that bind you, and let us walk together, finding strength in our shared journey towards a world where all are truly free. Let us know in the comments, what has liberated you?